Welcome to the Contact Center Gurus, the podcast for contact center and customer experience leaders. Learn best practices, new technologies, tips and tricks, and more. Today's episode is sponsored by Support Logic. Support Logic is the world's first support experience platform for customer support leaders, helping you move from providing reactive to proactive support. Reduce customer escalations by 40%. Reduce customer churn by 25%. Improve proactive outreach by 60% and more. Extract the voice of the customer in real time without surveys. Elevate your customer support and transform your customer experience with groundbreaking applications for next-generation customer service and support. Change the game with applications that leverage innovative AI and NLP technology, intelligent workflows, and intuitive UI for the SX platform. Sign up now for a free sandbox environment at www.supportlogic.io. This podcast is sponsored by Balto. Do your reps forget the right things to say on calls? Do they frequently put customers on hold because they don't know the answer? Or maybe they forget to ask discovery questions that help qualify customers. With Balto, you can guide each rep through their conversations at the push of a button. Balto rides along your reps' screens, listens to both sides of the conversation, and shows them the best things to say live on the call. After just 14 weeks of using Balto, National General Insurance saw 16% higher conversions and 53-second lower handle times. Head over to balto.ai/guru to get a free pair of Bose headphones for a demo. That's BALTO.ai/GURU. This podcast is also sponsored by Ozonetel. Is a contact center part of your customer service strategy? Ozonetel's AI-assisted platform will help you deliver the best experience possible. It's an affordable contact center solution with advanced features, deep native integrations, and outstanding service. There are no contracts or annual commitments, and you can get a basic contact center deployed within hours. Experience it yourself with a free trial at www.ozonetel.com. This podcast is sponsored by Cloud Tech Gurus. Cloud Tech Gurus are the hottest technology matchmakers for contact center leaders in the country. Sourcing technologies and solution providers is grueling, time-consuming, and complicated. They make the process simpler and more efficient. The Gurus map out your requirements, source solutions providers, help you choose the one that is the right fit, and help manage the implementation, all at no cost. They work with nearly every major vendor, more than 150 solutions providers, and are vendor agnostic. They help save you time, money, and headaches. Visit www.cloudtechgurus.com to learn more. Now, let's listen in.
Welcome, everyone. This is your host, Rob Enslow, and this is the Contact Center Gurus. We have a special guest today from Ozonetel, Chaitanya Chakrareddy, and we're very pleased to have him here. Why don't we kick it off by just giving us an introduction on you and a little background on Ozonetel, if you don't mind.
Sure. Thanks, Rob. Thanks for having me on. I am Chaitanya. I am the Chief Product Officer of Ozonetel Systems. A little bit about myself. I did my bachelor's in computer science, and then I did my master's from University of Florida, Gainesville, again in computer science. And after that, I sort of moved back to India, and that's where I met Mr. Murthy and Atul Sharma, who is a friend of mine, and we sort of got together and we started up Ozonetel Systems back in 2007. So when we started up back in 2007, it was very early stage in India, especially for telephony systems and cloud telephony. In fact, cloud telephony was unheard of back then. And but all three of us had been to the US and had come back to India, and we had seen the telephony systems, PBX systems, and all those answering machines, everything that was set up in the US, but not available to Indian businesses. So we had a thought process because Atul actually comes from a telephony background. And Mr. Murthy has been a serial entrepreneur, and he just had a exit before he started Ozonetel. He had sold his previous company to Freescale Semiconductors. And I come from a web background, platform and all that. So it was like we three got together and said, hey, look, you come from telephony, I come from web. Why don't we mix these two and make a cloud telephony company and provide these options to Indian businesses? So that was the thought process with which we started up. And when we first started up, we actually started with a hosted VXML platform. It's been a long time since we've heard of this VXML. I mean, at one point in time, that was what everybody used to build IVRs and all that on. We did a hosted VXML. But then there was this young startup at that time, right? I mean, who started up, and it was Twilio. They changed the complete market. I mean, with their easy to use APIs, they just disrupted the whole market.
Absolutely.
What Jeff used to call 5 verbs. And with just those 5 verbs, he just disrupted the market, and we loved it, what they were doing with the Twilio hosted cloud telephony model. Yeah. And we said that, hey, hosted VXML, that's not the way to go. I think this is the future. Why don't we do a Twilio for India? And that's how we started Cuckoo as a cloud telephony platform, very similar to Twilio. Yeah, similar APIs, verbs, but catering to the Indian customers, because again, Indian regulations and everything were different. Twilio runs on SIP and VoIP, but we had to solve a bigger problem in the sense that we had to provide these APIs over regular PSTN lines, where because VoIP is still not legal in India. So
interesting.
So that's where we started. We had to build our own hardware. We built up the whole stack. It took us a couple of years. We started in 2007, and we launched the product, our cloud telephony product, in 2009. And from then, in 2011, we launched a cloud call center product. Because once we exposed the developers were building innovative stuff, but core stuff nobody was building, because maybe they didn't have the telephony background to build this core stuff. So that's when we thought, hey, I think the market is ripe for a cloud call center. And we launched it with our first customer in 2010, 2011. And at that time, there was no cloud call center in the whole world, in fact. Later on, TalkDesk and everything came into picture. And but we had been providing this service in India. At that time, we were not concentrating in the US market. We were primarily concentrated in India, and we've been doing pretty well for the last 7-8 years now. And a couple of years back, we launched in the US, and now we are trying to make our headway into the US markets. That's a quick introduction about myself and the company.
That's fantastic. I appreciate that. So VoIP is still not legal in India, or did that regulation change? Still not legal?
It is not. No, it's not a change. It's still not legal. It's like VoIP to VoIP calls are legal, but you can't start a call on PSTN and terminate on a VoIP endpoint.
Interesting. So is that, what's their reasoning behind that?
I think multiple things. First thing is, once this opens up, I think mainly the government is concerned about security, tracking, and all that kind of stuff. And I think the other reason could be that, the government organizations have done investments in the PSTN space, and they have to recover those costs before they enable regulation.
Yeah, interesting. So you moved from this XML IVR platform, which I'm nearly certain it had to involve the most technical of the technical to change anything, right? So it's an entire sprint almost just to change one little feature on an IVR to this drag and drop GUI interface where you've got this, open, essentially painting like area where you could just build whatever you want very, very quickly and easily. So what are the advantages? I mean, obviously that's a clear advantage to cloud contact centers. What would you say are the number one advantages to cloud contact centers?
So I think, see, cloud, pretty much all the advantages that, if you look at even CRMs, they started with on-premise and then moved to the cloud. And now nobody even questions the advantages of the cloud because it's so obvious. But surprisingly, right, I mean, a lot of, apparently when we are trying to do some installations in the US, we were surprised to find that some businesses still do on-premise CRMs. So that was actually a surprise to us. But yeah, the advantages for the cloud are pretty similar in the sense that the first thing is onboarding. It's like, you can't even imagine 10 years back, right? I mean, if you had to get a phone number, even just a phone number for your business, you had to talk to, I would say, AT&T in the US and get somebody to come to your office and set up things. It would take forever. I mean, now it's an API call. I mean, you just go online and you pick and choose a number and calls start coming to your business and you can handle them. I mean, it's just amazing what the cloud has done. That has been the goal, right? I mean, if you think about it, when you set up a business, what's the first thing you do? I think the first thing you would do would be set up a website, a domain name. And why? Because it's so easy. You go online to Big GoDaddy and just click on a domain name and put up a web page. You are done. Somebody can visit you. But phones were so hard for so long. But now you could do it. You can just go on, go to Ozonetel or go to Twilio, just sign up for a number and calls start coming to your business. I think that's what the cloud has enabled. That advantage is there. But specific to call centers, right? I mean, it's a bigger picture. I mean, if you think about it, agents have to log in. You have to set up a space for contact center, and then agents have to receive calls on their headphones. So many things have go in place for a contact center. But the cloud has changed all that in the sense that, again, you can set up a cloud contact center within like 5 minutes, and your agents can start receiving the calls on their mobile phones. Take advantage of the fact that everybody now carries a computer in their pocket, and the cloud contact center has actually, and the cloud contact center has made it possible for agents to work from anywhere. This was all the more visible during this current pandemic, right? I mean, it just disrupted everything. For example, in India, I think it was overnight, the Prime Minister announced a lockdown. Everything was fine one day. If I remember correctly, it was March 22nd. And the next day in the evening, the Prime Minister announced a lockdown. And within 2 days, they opened up some services like groceries or medical pharmacy deliveries and stuff like that. Once you open that up, customers have queries. And we have our customers, contact center customers who are running our services. But where will the agents go? It's a lockdown. So we had to quickly enable the agents to be able to take a call from their homes. Just log in from the homes, take the calls from their mobile phones. No login, nothing. I mean, just start it. And that was purely possible only because of the cloud availability.
Well,
so I think, those are the advantages.
Absolutely. And it's more or less that folks are walking around, everyone's walking around with a mini data center in their pocket almost, because, instead of a computer, it's become incredible what, cloud has done, cloud storage and responsive applications on mobile. And I know some folks in India, by the way, that in the Philippines, that, I mean, these guys have they conduct all of their work. They don't even own a computer. They just do everything on their phone, and they operate their business. And it's crazy. It's really amazing.
I do that too. I do that too. Absolutely. See, I'm having this call on the mobile phone now. I mean, it's like we are having this whole podcast getting recorded and everything on the phone. I mean, it's superb.
And you're in India, and I'm in Utah, and it's fantastic. It's incredible. So it's in terms of like for folks like you and I, we feel like cloud is mainstream. But I've in a recent study by Gartner, there's almost 50% adoption in the market, which is staggering to me, because we've come from, back in 2010 when, I was trying to convince folks, working at a company called In Contact, that cloud was okay, that it was safe, that it was more secure, than on-prem. And that was just kind of a wild idea, right? That was a paradigm shift that nobody really, we call them box huggers, right? The IT folks that wanted to hold on, they wanted to look, touch, and feel, that box in their center, and that was security and safety for them, and it's come so far. We've gone from, having just a fraction of the market share on cloud to today it's going to reach over 3.2 billion, and it's projected in 10 years from now. This is another study done by another group, but it's projected to be at 10 billion by 2030, which is incredible. So back to Ozonetel, what everybody's says they have the most incredible solution, and of course, being the the father, more or less, of the Ozonetel solution, obviously you're very it's close to home, right? But what I would really like to focus on is maybe some of the specifics on how do you solve for real problems in call centers that call centers are still facing today. So for example, how do you track agent productivity?
So see, I mean, if you look at it, the first thing that a contact center software should do is improve agent productivity. The rest of it, I mean, is just, whatever you want to add a feature, you want to call it, because see, ultimately the costliest resource in a contact center is the agent. I mean, obviously nowadays real estate is giving a good run for the money, but the costliest resource is an agent. I mean, if you look at it, the whole software is designed to help an agent. So for that matter, good tracking facility should be available. Is the agent performing as he or she is expected to perform? And are they doing the job that they're supposed to be doing with the least amount of hindrances? And how does the software help them do that? So these were there from the beginning, from the moment we started designing the system. These were our first thought process. We didn't, queues, ACDs, you talk about all this stuff, all of this ultimately, they end up helping the agent handle their calls at that time. But frankly speaking, now it's not just calls, it's everything. And so our evolution has been along those lines. We have been, the first thing we designed was the agent toolbar. We spent a lot of time in trying to, multiple iterations, in trying to make sure that the toolbar was as minimalistic as possible, but at the same time allows an agent to perform all the operations that they're supposed to do in a contact center. And that's been our success from the beginning. I mean, it shows that our design held because we have not modified the design for the last 10 years. The first design that we came up with the toolbar, and that still holds. And the other thing that we did when we designed this toolbar was that we obviously, we technically, from a technical perspective, we used all the latest tools at that time, back in 2010. Now they've become commonplace. For example, Websockets. When we first launched the agent toolbar, we were the first in the world to actually launch a WebSocket-based agent toolbar. In fact, at that time, WebSocket was not even a standard at that time. We had to build our own library to support that specification. But now it's like, it's part of the browser.
Right.
Look at how far we have come. It's become integral. Same thing goes with WebRTC. We were one of the first to actually integrate all this and enable an agent to do a lot of things on these using just the browser, nothing else. That has been our go-to focus. At the same time, right, agents are the first stakeholders that we concentrate on. But the second most important one are the managers or the supervisors, because we have to give them the right tools to make sure that they are actually monitoring and helping the agents that they're supposed to be monitoring. For them, we again have a very good system monitor that we came up with. Again, a very innovative design, including bargain, all the features that are available. Getting all of this into the browser without having a desktop installation was what we concentrated on. Now it's become commonplace, I would say. But back when we started, those were all very new things that we innovated on.
And for those of you listening that have never heard of Ozonetel and think they might be a nobody, they are today. I mean, they enable over 100,000 agents on their platform. So just FYI, they are a hidden gem in my mind. So the and you know have I know you have contracts with Apple and Papa John's, I think, here in the US.
Yeah.
So I guess what have you focused on recently that, you know, I guess are would be considered new innovations in the cloud contact center space, and where do you see this going? So for example, do you see it, you know, these innovations, you know, I guess running up against a wall at some point where there's only so much you can do in order to optimize, you know, and then it's just left to, you know, chance and you know, everybody's the same.
Yeah, that's a very good point that you make, Rob. So if you look at it, right, I mean, innovations in the contact center space, if you look at the last 20 years, for a lot of time, it was pretty stagnant. You stopped innovating. I remember in 2002 or something, Tell Me came up with some IVR designing situations with some speech, voice recognition. You could call it voice bots, but they didn't call it at that time. But now they're called voice bots. But yeah, speech-enabled IVR. That was the last thing that I heard about. See, what happened was contact centers got stuck on innovation, and they were too focused on just routing a call or managing a call, and they were so focused on it that they lost the desktop war to CRMs. So if I remember, before CRMs were in place, contact centers had the ownership of the agent desktop.
Right.
And then CRMs butted in, especially Salesforce, and it took over the agent desktop. Now, when I work with customers, I have to put my toolbar inside a CRM.
Yeah.
Rather than the other way around. So
right.
this basically says that the CRMs have won the desktop wars, where I say it's time for the contact center companies to take back what is rightfully theirs, because an agent is supposed to be working on a contact center software, and then the CRM is a place where they store the data.
Right.
And so I think there is a lot of scope for innovation in that respect. It's been our goal to sort of take back, though we are very good partners with a lot of CRMs, but still I feel that there's a lot of scope where we can contribute and help with the taking over of the agent desktops. But in that respect, right, what can help us? What can help us is basically two things. What has changed? I remember in 2010, when we started this cloud telephony company platform, TechCrunch actually came with an article saying that the phone call is dead. So we were like a new startup, and we were depending our future on phone calls.
Yeah.
And there is TechCrunch saying that the phone call is dead. And we were like, oh no, what is happening? But yeah, 10 years down the line, we have handled 3 billion calls. Phone call is not dead. And luckily, it's not going away anywhere soon. But see, what is happening is the medium may change. I mean, the phone call, if you look at it right, as somebody pointed out, the phone is now an app in your mobile. It's not, though you call it as a mobile phone, the phone part is just an app.
Yes.
It's actually a mobile computer with a phone app. So the medium changes, but still people want to talk to businesses. So that has, in fact, I wrote a blog at that time saying the phone call will not be dead. You may not call it a phone call in the future.
Good for you. You predicted the future. No, that's
10 years back. So luckily, so I think that's where we are going. Omni-channel is going to be big. I mean, people are now don't expect an agent to just take a call. They expect an agent to be fluent in Twitter speak, Instagram speak. I am also too old for some of these new social media things that are coming up. For example, I have no clue how TikTok works, so I have to get updated on that. But yeah, that's where we are going. And the second big thing which has happened, right, is AI has become workable. I mean, earlier it was all just in the realms of science fantasy, I would say.
Exactly.
AI or a bot or something. But now artificial intelligence has become mainstream. And it's been, these algorithms are available to us. Yeah, these algorithms are available to us for us to make these innovations. So I think these two things are what we are concentrating on, omnichannel and AI.
So the what's interesting about AI is that AI has, it kind of blossomed. What would you say, a couple of years ago?
Yeah,
where it was kind of more or less born, where somebody demonstrated machine learning can actually work. And what's fascinating to me is even and I'm not a programmer by any means. I know a little bit of Python, but that's it. But I would say, the AI, that what was fascinating to me about kind of learning about AI and some of the things that they can do with it is essentially AI, like software that writes software. That to me is just a crazy, wild concept.
Absolutely.
But it's become a reality. What would you say? Before we leave the agent conversation, I just wanted to ask one more question on that. What would you say to somebody who is trying to decide whether or not to bring your agent experience out of the CRM and into your environment? What are the advantages of that that you think they could take advantage of? Compelling, Finney.
Yeah. So the biggest advantage, right, is right now what is happening is there are too many touch points, and CRM can also do it in a way, but the major problem happens because where does the conversation start? Who handles the start of the conversation? Because right now it's all about conversations. Now CRM was actually meant it's not about tracking conversations, it's more about after a customer is created or a lead is created, you apply some tags to them and all that kind of a thing. What we are talking about is that who owns the conversations. So what has happened here is it's sort of an artificial pitch which has been made, that though the conversation starts in the contact centers, you have to push the data into a CRM in a very artificial way in one location. And then you have to build some solutions on top of it to get some intelligence out of it.
Right.
What I am saying is that with a contact center, the touch point, the starting touch point is with the contact center. So I know at that touch point itself, what can be done. For example, why should there be a single queue for just calls? Why can't there be an omni-channel queue itself? If I hold all the data and the conversations are with me to start off with in the contact center space, then there's a lot more things I can do, including the queuing of it, or the ACD is applied across channels. We're not talking about one channel where an ACD is applied. And these are the kind of innovations that can happen. And on top of it, bots. Now, who owns the bots? Which I'm sure that going forward, everything is going to be, the first touch point is going to be a bot. There's without a doubt. I'm sure that within the next year itself, almost all contacts that we do with a business, they start off with a bot. At least to say, who are you? Why are you calling? And the bot will take that first question and then route that call or conversation to the right agent at the right time. So I think that's why the biggest advantage is you own the customer journey. And the way we work with is the customer has to define where they want to store their data. This has become another big issue. If you look at it, even with CRM space, the privacy of the data and all that comes into picture, which has been an issue with a lot of people. For us, the way we have designed our system is none of the data goes through our system. If at all they want, we directly push it into Amazon S3 or whatever that they want, and none of it is stored in our systems whatsoever.
Okay, so it's just
it sounds like
it sounds like the greatest advantage would be that one hub to manage all of their conversations, to manage all of the channels, omni-channel. And by the way, folks, if anyone is still unclear on what Ozonetel does, they compete directly with the Five9s and Genesis and the TalkDesk of the world. So that would seem to be the greatest advantage, is to manage all their conversations, one UI, and all the channels as well. How has Ozonetel I guess implemented AI in their software?
Yeah. So as I said, right, I mean, since a couple of years, you were right in pointing out that AI became feasible a couple of years back. And the main feasibility, right, what worked was two things. One was speech recognition became acceptable levels, came to certain acceptable levels. I mean, we all know, we have used Google voicemail since a long time, and how bad it was at the beginning and how okay it is now, and how we go. I mean, for example, even the Zoom meeting, for example, comes up with transcripts if we enable it. They are acceptable. I mean, I know it still does make some mistakes, but it's acceptable. I would call it that way. At the same time, NLP, natural language processing, especially as you rightly pointed out, OpenAI, for example, has opened up their models, which is one of the biggest 172 billion parameter model that they have opened up, and it works really well for enabling chat applications and embeddings and all that kind of stuff. So these two completely change the picture for us, and we believe that yes, we have to use this. Now, how do we use AI, right? I mean, there are multiple. AI, I would say, takes part in every part of it. We start off with the bots, which is the most sexy part of it, especially even with chat bots or with voice bots. With voice bots, obviously, we'll have to have speech recognition engines. And obviously, the way we work with is we own the whole stack. We start from scratch and we try to build up the whole thing. We don't try to depend on any third party so that we have control mainly.
So like the other the providers that I've seen, they think, my only options for AI voice, conversational AI is through Google Dialogflow, through, something with Azure, through something with, Amazon. I guess so you're saying that you build your own IP around that?
Yep, absolutely.
And the advantages of that, what would you say are the advantages of doing that versus
the biggest advantage,
some of these other technologies?
Yeah, the biggest advantage, right? The biggest disadvantage of AI is that it's not explainable. You may never know why it works, and you may not know why it doesn't work.
So interesting. You're so right.
Yeah, especially if you use, let's say, Google or Amazon, then there is no way you will know. I mean, it just gives a result back, and you have no clue what the model has done.
Right. So it's almost like asking, like, how do you learn?
Exactly.
Yeah, no, it's good point.
So yeah, that's where our advantage comes in. I mean, we say we explain the situation to you. If something doesn't work, we go into the model, tune it, and make it work.
Interesting. Okay. And these bots that you utilize, are they becoming a staple with some of the clients that you've had and have?
For sure. See, I would say, what is happening is people are expecting too many things. I mean, when we started off, chatbots were like the holy grail was promised. They'll talk to you like a normal person,
right?
As if, and all that kind of stuff. See, what ultimately ended up being is that I would say I call them as ICRs, interactive chat response systems, instead of a proper bot system or an intelligent system. See, the whole point is nobody's trying to chit chat. You go to a business, you're asking certain information, you have to identify the right intent and give the right response. That has become stable for a lot of our customers, including banks. We have worked with multiple. So what happens is our approach is we say the following. We do a hybrid approach. We say that first deploy agents. Just deploy agents. Let the conversations flow. Once the conversation flows, you identify common patterns. Let's say for a month, you do this with agents, and then you identify the common patterns, pull them out, and then train a system which can answer the questions. And that has worked really well for us. So it's like a hybrid approach where we start with the agents and then find the common flows. And which are the most, let's say 80% of the flows are asking for order details. You push that out and let the bot handle that, and remaining 20% where an agent is needed, let it be handled by an agent.
Okay, I'm going to ask a very controversial question. Will AI ever replace agents permanently?
I don't think so. It's a
I don't
controversial
either.
question.
I don't either, but why?
Good. We are on the same page. Yeah. Nice. So I think it'll just help. AI is supposed to help agents do their job better. And we are getting there. I think people are realizing that also.
Yep.
Earlier, business owners used to say that, hey, I just want a bot. I don't want anything else.
Yeah.
The bot should do it.
I mean, granted, it can be, I've seen it be instrumental in taking, the lead on just scheduling appointments. There are bots that sound like humans that schedule appointments, and it's fascinating to observe how real and authentic it can sound.
Yeah,
I've seen technologies where the agent is managing 4 conversations at once on 4 different desktops in front of them. Crazy. So so I guess as this, it seems like the contact center agent UI has become, instead of this application to manage your phone calls, it almost seems like it's turning more to really a conversation tool.
Absolutely. You hit the nail on the head. That's what it is. I mean, the way I imagine it is, if I have to predict the future, you rightly pointed out, right? I mean, a single agent is handling like 4 conversations. I mean, chats, I can understand. 4 chats, anybody can do it. But 4 calls, how do you handle? So what happens, right? I mean, because it's a synchronous communication channel. How do you do that? With AI, you can do it. I mean, you have the right text to speech and right speech to text. Whatever the customer is speaking comes as text to the agent. Agent can see it like a chat and then respond. He doesn't answer. The bot answers with its own Alexa voice or whatever, with its own avatar voice. But the agent is the one directing the flow. So agent will always be needed. But at the same time, a single agent is now handling 4 calls instead of 1. And another very important point you said, if you imagine the future, it's going to be like, I imagine an agent like a airport controller looking at different things happening in his place, and it's like, okay, click that, and done. The conversation is taken care of.
100%. So I guess in closing, what would you say would be a compelling thing about, an attribute or characteristic about Ozonetel that would maybe be something as so many, I think, are oftentimes shopping for this sort of solution. What would you say is unique about Ozonetel when they already have all of these big players like the ones I've mentioned earlier? What makes you guys different? How do you differentiate?
So see, when you come to different, I mean, from a feature perspective, I can say something, the others will say something. Everybody says everybody has everything, right? I mean, if you look at it, we are in a world where it's all integrated and we are doing stuff. I would say we come under with I can tell from experience from where we have replaced some of these systems and the feedback we have got from customers, right? 2 things stood out. One is first and foremost is obviously owning the whole stack. Yeah, because we are going to the level of explainable AI, because that's what we owe the customer. We can't just say that, hey, Google gave me this response, so that's what you got to live with. We don't. We don't believe that.
Including the telephony, it sounds like too, right? You own everything, so you own the Twilio aspect, or the telephony. You own
the platform. We own starting from the everything, including the hardware in India,
and AI.
Yeah, and AI. So that is one thing. The other thing, right? Surprisingly, it's a small thing, but surprisingly, in the US, that's been a differentiating factor for us, which is support. 24/7 agent direct support. It's surprising that many US products don't give phone support. It's very hard to. I mean, it's very surprising. Yeah, it's very surprising that you provide a phone support system, but you don't find a support number on the website of the product.
Isn't that interesting?
System. Yeah, that's
isn't that interesting? It's even i3 before they were acquired by Genesys, they were completely 100% selling through partners, and so their customer support was some independent consultant who doesn't own a business with multiple employees where they can really support customers the way that they ought to support them in some cases. So interesting. Okay, fantastic.
So that's what we have observed. I mean, now once we entered into the US market, we identified this as a huge differentiating factor because we provide direct phone support at any time, because it's a contact center, for crying out loud. I mean, if something goes down, who do they reach out to? Right?
It's critical. It's critical. Yeah, uptime is critical. So I guess how can people get a hold of you guys, and how can they do you guys offer any test pilot
so obviously
trials or anything like that, and where do they go to check you guys out?
Well, we are at ozonetel.com, and you can just mail us at sales@ozonetel.com. We would be, especially for the podcast listeners, I would say we'll give a month free trial for sure.
Fantastic.
We would love to do that.
And Ozonetel, please spell that for us so we know how to spell it.
Yeah, OZONETEL. Ozone as in ozone layer, and tel as in telephony. Ozonetel.com.
Perfect. Well, we thank you for joining, and hope to do it again soon.
Absolutely, Rob. Thanks a lot. I mean, it was really fun talking with you.
Likewise. Thank you.
Thanks.
Thanks for listening to the Contact Center Gurus podcast. Make sure to visit our sponsor pages. Support Logic at www.supportlogic.io. Balto at www.balto.ai. Ozonetel at www.ozonetel.com. Cloud Tech Gurus at www.cloudtechgurus.com. Don't forget to subscribe, and we will see you next time.